So I'm Emily Vollmer. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator for the Virginia Tech Office of Sustainability. I'm going to be moderating this discussion and Q&A today. But before I pass things off to our presenters, I'm going to go over the agenda for this event really quickly. So we're going to start off with a round of introductions from our panel members. They'll be introducing themselves in the order that they're going to be presenting. And then we'll move into an overview of the climate action commitment, where we'll provide some historical perspective. We'll take a look at the revision and approval process, and then we'll go into each of the goals of the climate action commitment. After that, we will get to hear from all of our panel members on the work that they've been doing in their fields and how it ties to the climate action commitment. We'll briefly touch on some next steps, and then we will open it up to the Q&A portion of the event. Feel free to send questions through the Q&A feature throughout the duration of the event. We will address them once we get through all of the presentations. This event is being recorded, so if you have to leave early or if you're worried about missing anything, we will be uploading the recording to our website sometime next week. All right, so without further ado, we'll move into our quick round of introductions. Like I said, I'm Emily Vollmer. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator with the Office of Sustainability, and with that, I will pass it off to John.
Hey, so good to do this 1 year later, and also in Earth Week. I'm John Randolph. I'm a retired professor, and I've chaired the working group that developed the climate action commitment, and then got asked to help implement it. So I am interim director of the Climate Action Sustainability and Energy Unit in CPIF, which is Campus Planning, Infrastructure, and Facilities. You'll hear more from me.
And hello, I'm Nathan King, the Campus Sustainability Manager, also with CPIF. And it's nice to see everyone here today. I'll pass it over to Steve.
Thanks, Nathan. Steve Durfee, Campus Energy Manager. I also work within CPIF. Happy Earth Week to everybody.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nick Quint. I'm the Transportation Network Manager, which basically means I manage the Alternative Transportation Department, part of Transportation Services at Virginia Tech.
I think you're muted, Teresa.
I was going to try to be better with that. I am with the Office of Waste Management, part of the Division of Campus Planning, Infrastructure, and Facilities, and happy Earth Week to all of you as well.
Great. Good afternoon, folks. So I'm Todd Schenk. I'm a faculty member in SPIA, which is the School of Public and International Affairs, and I had the pleasure of being the vice chair of the climate action commitment process, working with John and many of the other folks here. And I'm super excited to be also working with various folks here, John, Jack, many others, on the Climate Action Living Laboratory. So I think that's what I'm going to focus on largely today. Happy Earth Week.
Hello, I'm John Shewchuk. I'm a mechanical engineering student, minor in green engineering, member of Virginia Tech for Climate Justice. I was on the Climate Justice Subcommittee of the 2020 Climate Action Commitment Working Group. And I'm happy to be presenting here today on the student perspective on the Climate Action Commitment.
All right, thank you guys so much. With introductions out of the way, we will go ahead and move into the presentation portion of our event. So I'll stop sharing and I'll just pass it over to John for an overview of the Climate Action Commitment.
And I hope the slides come up here for everyone. CAC 1 year later, hard to believe. It's been quite a run so far, and we'll see what more there is to do. And, you know, to look back a little bit, you know, back in 2009, the university developed its first climate action commitment and sustainability plan, and it was pretty well touted around the country as a really good step. We upgraded it a little bit a couple years later, a few years later, but really made kind of minor changes. But the real action started in the fall of 2019. You know, the Friday climate strikes by students, resolutions by the faculty and staff senates kind of raised the bar here. And President Sands came out with a statement that climate change is one of the world's most pressing problems, and Virginia Tech has a duty to respond. Well, we I think have responded. At least we've made a start. First by forming our working group of 25, 10 students, 10 faculty, and 5 staff to develop this commitment. And in spring of 2020, we met diligently weekly, and we set up 12 subcommittees that engaged 120 others on campus that also met weekly, and engaged several hundred others who participated in surveys and workshops for us to develop the overall plan. Then finally, by July, we finished the final technical report, 135 pages plus appendices, and then the 12 subcommittee reports that all ran between 20 and 50 pages. It was a big, big effort, monument of material that we put together for this. It sailed through governance without a dissenting vote. It was quite a pleasure to do this. And it was nice to get a lot of great reaction from the university. And then in the winter of 2021, CPIF people and the Office of Budget and Financial Planning people responded to a Board of Visitors request to develop a cost and financial plan for it. And that plan indicated that that actually the university would save money implementing this climate action commitment. That helped the board, and they approved the climate action commitment unanimously in March of last year, just 13 months ago. So since that time, we've been really working toward implementing this, and with a significant commitment by CPIF that really has helped us move forward on several fronts that we'll be talking about today. So first, just look at the commitment itself. It's got 15 goals, so it's kind of lengthy in its development. The first 5 goals stress a reduction of carbon emissions to create a carbon neutral campus by 2030. And so we've got 100% renewable electricity to contribute to that, a reduction of emissions in our steam plant and our energy systems, very important, and our upgrading existing buildings and new buildings in terms of energy efficiency to reduce our overall carbon emissions. But our carbon footprint, we decided, includes not just emissions from direct combustion and electricity, so-called scope 1 and 2, but also certain so-called scope 3 upstream and downstream emissions. And these required goals for our ag and land use activities are waste management to become a zero waste campus by 2030, our procurement, our transportation emissions, including commuting to campus. And these are really important as we do really more than a lot of other universities and going beyond our direct emissions. An important goal was number 10, to integrate the CAC into our educational mission, really by advancing our climate and sustainability education and, instruction and research, and creating what we call, the Climate Action Living Laboratory. To address necessary social factors of what we do, Goal 11 cites social equity and climate justice as core values. And Goal 12 addresses the importance of people's behavior and choices in reducing emissions and to enhance campus livability. Goal 13 aims to kind of elevate CAC and the university leadership and governance, as well as expand engagement of everyone. We also need to be smart how we finance the needed investments in budgeting and staffing. And then finally, while the first 14 goals focus on the next 8 years, do you hear that? Just 8 years. Goal 15 looks beyond to become a fossil fuel-free campus by 2050. Pretty comprehensive and pretty complicated, a big list, hard to keep track of them all. So for our implementation, we decided to look at this in a simpler number of 4 pillars of implementation that include, of course, the facilities climate action, the climate sustainability education and research, the sustainable campus culture, and administration and governance. And to describe these, of course, the facilities climate action, this first pillar is pretty much the all-important physical changes to infrastructure systems, buildings, electricity, you name it. And pillar 2 focuses on climate action for our educational system, the climate sustainability education and research, really to educate our students to become leaders of tomorrow, to develop new knowledge to, well, help save the world, I guess, and to assist communities that are impacted by climate change and what I call the emerging clean energy economy, which affects many. The third pillar addresses our sustainable campus culture, a lot of and behavioral issues that underpin what we do. And pillar 4 addresses how we organize, manage, govern, engage, and finance the other 3 pillars. So what have we done? Well, we've done a lot, but boy, we got a lot to do and, you know, really not much time to do it. We're really excited about, you know, some of the physical development going on, particularly the solar development of 2 megawatts on building rooftops that should be completed next year. It's really a great move forward. Important upgrades to our steam power plant and the chiller system that we have. And basically, you know, we haven't used coal in the power plant since 2019, and I doubt that we will ever again. Steve will talk about the exciting energy action plan and the efficiency improvements we've got going on campus. It's really pretty exciting part of our development. And the university making a commitment of funds for this is really a good sign. Teresa is going to talk a bit about our waste management, and we're about to hire a zero waste campus consultant to inform us, do a waste audit, and a campus waste manager for really the first time. And then Nick was going to talk about our alternative transportation efforts, including EV charging and really our partnership with Blacksburg that we have. And then on the academic side, Todd will talk about our meeting with lots of faculty and lots of conversations about this climate action living laboratory, how we organize for it, how we build on what we've got, and hopefully institutionalize that. On the engagement side, we've developed 8 different task forces of the Energy and Sustainability Committee, including lots of members who aren't on the committee. But you can see the list here: climate justice, sustainable culture, greenhouse gas inventory, offsets, carbon neutral commuting. It's pretty exciting to get more and more people involved in our process. On the organization side, CPIF has gone through a pretty substantial reorganization and has really embraced the climate action commitment. And Marianne Obiziaco is the assistant vice president, who's also the chief sustainability officer, and really taking the lead in this regard. And Nathan will talk a bit more about the student engagement, which is a longstanding tradition of the Office of Sustainability that has really been an important part of our process to date. And then we've worked very closely with the Office of Budget and Financial Planning, which has been really useful because they, you know, handle the money and are developing pretty innovative financing for solar and energy efficiency projects. So lots going on here, and it's not done because we are doing a roadshow to really engage the rest of the university. This is our whole plan here. We realized that it took the whole university to develop the climate action commitment from, fall of 2019, with hundreds of people involved in the process. And it's going to take the entire university to implement it. And so what we have done is been meeting with campus leaders, faculty, commissions, groups on campus. Here's the list of the roadshow stops that we've had along the way, and there's still more to be done. We've got others on our list from here on out. We meet with University Council in a couple weeks, which will be a good one. So lots going on, but much, much more to be done. And with that, I think I will pass this on to Nathan to talk about our Office of Sustainability programs.
All right, thanks, John. Let me share screen, my presentation. All right. Well, certainly the Office of Sustainability has been a big part of the climate action commitment, both versions, as John mentioned earlier. And really our office exists to do a number of different things. One is to just oversee the climate action commitment and our sustainability plan. We also track and report on sustainability progress through our annual reports, which I'll talk a little bit more about. We coordinate several campus sustainability programs. We manage a campus-wide student internship program, and we really do try to act as a central hub for campus communications around sustainability. And even though we're pretty engaged in almost all of the goals of the climate action commitment, I would say we're at least really highly engaged in goals 10 and 12, especially over this past year, which deals with the education engagement aspects of the commitment, as well as just reducing barriers to sustainability around campus. So here's some quick highlights of what I'll be talking a little bit more about. You can see, we have the Green Office certification, Green Lab certification, several of our other programs that we run, and I'll end with talking about some of our class partnerships and some of the other progress we've made over the past year. But to start off, we have our student internship program, and this is really one of our gems. It's an award-winning program. We actually just received a Governor's Environmental Excellence Award for this past year, and we try to hire about 20 undergraduate students each year for the program, and they directly work on projects that are related to our CAC goals in one way or another. And they also conduct a lot of campus outreach and education. And you can see from the photos here a number of different events going on either during Earth Week or America Recycles Day, macroinvertebrate stream sampling in Strubles Creek, and various other projects. But we also make professional development a huge core goal of the program. We really want to develop our students into their future leaders, good communicators that can really organize events and manage projects effectively. And we actually just finished up hiring our next round of interns about a week ago. But next off is our sustainability annual report and STARS. And the annual report really is our primary vehicle for reporting on progress for the climate action commitment. And you can follow the link below there to go to all 11 consecutive years of annual reports that are available online. This is a pretty massive undertaking every summer. We partner with about 50 different student, campus, and community organizations to wrap together all the information and the data that goes into this report. So it is very comprehensive and would encourage you to check that out. We also, every 3 years, work on a sustainable tracking, assessment, and rating system report. And this is in conjunction with our professional organization, ASHE, which is the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education. And so this report is due every 3 years. We do try to submit every 3 years. And it really ties together a couple different major categories in terms of academics, engagement, operations, administration, planning, and innovation. And we get scored on all of these different areas in terms of our campus sustainability. And believe it or not, Virginia Tech is typically in the top 15% of STARS reporting schools and universities. So we're quite proud of that as well. Next, I'll chat a little bit about our Green Office certification and our Green Lab certification, because these are really our primary engagement tools for faculty and staff primarily, but certainly students get involved with our Green Lab certification as well, or any office student workers can get involved in the Green Office certification. But this really is a great way for our green representatives or green champions around campus to get involved with their office mates and coworkers, to do some peer-to-peer education, as well as you step through the process of getting certified, you will reduce waste, energy usage, GHG emissions, water, transportation, as well as just budget expenditures in the long run through this program. So I would just highly encourage everyone to get involved in this program. We've got 12 certified offices, but we'd of course love to get more. Obviously COVID has made that a little more difficult over the last 2 years with many people working remotely. But as we get back to more normal operations, we should see an uptick in that. We also have another very successful program for student engagement, which is our Green RFP program. Students are able to research, develop, and write a request for proposal every fall to implement a sustainability project around campus. And it's great because you get to partner with facilities staff, mentors who will help you through the process. And we've implemented over 116 projects in the last 10 years and at over $1.5 million. So it's been a great program, a lot of water bottle refill stations, bicycling infrastructure, LED lights around campus. As you see those, chances are they were a green RFP from our students. We also have a couple other programs, one being for our graduates, which is our Green Grads program. You're able to pledge how you're going to be sustainable after you leave Virginia Tech and enter the working world. And as you do that, we will give you a green cord for graduation to honor that pledge and that commitment after you leave Virginia Tech. And then we also have our Green Game Day crew that goes around, interacts with tailgaters, and helps them to learn about recycling at Virginia Tech and waste management. And we've been doing that program for a number of years as well. And lastly, I'll just mention, we've been highly involved in supporting our climate action commitment road shows that have been happening that John mentioned earlier. We are partnering with many different departments and offices around campus to move forward our call initiative, which Todd will speak more to in a bit. And then our office partners with various professors and classes. And just in the last year or two, we've partnered with Dr. Moshrek, Dr. Carlson, Dr. McGinnis, Dr. Schenk, and others to help with research projects and other projects involving sustainable barriers, greenhouse gas inventory, and many others. And so, we're always happy to get involved with different professors as new ideas come up, new projects come up. And again, we partner with many different student organizations as well. As you'll see throughout Earth Week this week, we've got a number of partnerships in place with many of the organizations and events that you see going on. Lastly, we do have a number of different awards over the last year that we have touched on. And we've also, of course, got B Campus USA certification happening very soon, which you'll see this week as well, which we're proud of. And then lastly, I just encourage you to get involved through our social media. And here are links to our different accounts. So do feel free to like, subscribe, and follow us here. But with that, I will turn it over to Steve. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Nathan. Screen shared here for you. There it comes. Okay, so Steve Durfee, like I said earlier, campus energy manager. I've been here at Virginia Tech for about 15 months now, so you could say I'm new. And since being here, I've got this climate action commitment approved right after I got here. It was great. And then shortly after that, as John mentioned, there was a bit of a reorganization, and that was great. So it helped align resources and things. So there's been some nice changes a year later already. I mean, my department, let's see, here we go. I work in the Office of Energy Management, and I've listed here some wonderful people who I give them credit for all the good things that we've been doing over the last year. We've got Jason, he's our building automation system and chill water manager. We've got Jesse, he's our senior energy engineer. Simona Freed is our energy analyst, and Eli Myers is our app support specialist. Okay, they work very hard on helping to create action plans, okay, and to help implement them. And we, as you can see on the diagram here, we evaluate our progress, and very important, recognizing achievements. And that's what we intend to do going forward. John mentioned climate action commitment goals. I gotta say, carbon neutrality and reducing building energy consumption, that's like my baby. That's where the sweet spot is for me. That's what our office is really good at. I mean, we care about the others and we work on the others too, but honestly, energy efficiency, that's the sweet spot for us. That's what we're really good at doing. And that's why we developed this Energy Action Plan 6. Prior to Energy Action Plan 6, it was 1 through 5, that over a course of about 5 years prior, well, I think it was about 2015 through 2020, approximately $30 million was spent on our campus. Some people don't know that. That's a lot. We did a lot of LED lighting and a lot of HVAC system optimization and efficiency projects, some infrastructure projects and things like that. Since then, we haven't done too much, COVID and whatnot, but recently, since the CAC was approved, we were asked to develop another phase, this Energy Action Plan 6 of infrastructure and energy efficiency projects on campus. So $6.277 million worth, right? And this has been approved by the university. We're waiting a funding strategy right now for that. But we're super excited. We built this together with a lot of different stakeholders, even outside my office. Look at building automation systems, right? They control all the HVAC systems on campus, which are responsible, honestly, for probably 65% of all campus energy usage is in mechanical systems. So we really put a lot of focus into that. And our building automation systems, we want to optimize them, spend $1 million there, save almost $300,000 a year. Lots of LED projects, $2.2 million worth of LED lighting. I don't have to talk much about LED lights. Everybody knows. Everyone's seen the energy reduction in their own homes and things like that due to LEDs. They're wonderful, and they improve indoor environmental quality for us too, with better light quality and quantity. Lots of other little climate action commitment projects and programs, almost $1.5 million worth. A lot of that money will go into energy metering. Very important. Can't manage what we don't measure. So we're going to add some more advanced metering into our system. And there's some lighting audit money in there. And then John actually had mentioned earlier about a smart lab program. Laboratory ventilation is a very big source of energy usage on campus. And we know that there are optimal ways to operate the ventilation systems. And we're looking to develop programs that will help to reduce the energy intensity of laboratory systems. So that's a big deal. We have funding available to start working on a program there. Retro commissioning, right? So again, mechanical systems, your heating and cooling systems that are in the places that you work and learn in and teach in. Over time, they can get a little sloppy and they use too much energy to do the same job. So we go back through with our technicians and our engineers and we tweak the systems and tighten things back up so that they operate more as they did on day one, okay, as initially intended and designed. And we save significant money there. As you can see, 3 and 3.3 year payback on that investment. Wonderful. Chilled water system, right? We have this big chilled water loop around campus that provides like 43, 44 degree water into buildings, to air conditioned buildings. There's all kinds of ways that we can optimize the operation of that too. And again, efficiency, name of the game. Provide cooling with less energy, the same level of cooling, but with less. There's a lot of different ways we can do that with piping, reconfiguring piping and programming, right? Like cool programming that uses, different temperature sensors to make decisions and things like that. Pretty cool. At least I think it's pretty cool anyway. So we're excited about Energy Action Plan 6. Here's a couple of other things that we've been doing. We said that we would work more like we understand that like LEED for green buildings is really important and it's part of the climate action commitment, right? We want all our new buildings going forward, new designs to be very efficient and to be green, green buildings, right? So one thing that we haven't been doing was focusing more on the operations and maintenance of buildings going forward. So this LEED O&M pilot project that we're doing over at Moss Center for the Arts is pretty cool. It's a little different than a typical LEED program that looks at the design and construction phases and process and does those sustainably. This is more about actual performance of the building, where we do a lot of measurement in the area of like waste stream. We just did a waste audit yesterday over there actually, which was really we had fun. A bunch of us were over there and we were picking through the trash and dumpster diving, if you will. It was fun. We learned what our waste stream looked like and how we might be able to be doing better. We do transportation surveys. We gain human experience, opinions from people on how they like the building. We measure water and energy flows in the building, and it gets benchmarked against peer buildings, and it gives a score, and we determine, hey, is this building, really very sustainable or not? Otherwise, we kind of don't really know. So it's a great way to also get building occupants involved in their own buildings and get people to care more about their own buildings and champion their own buildings. And that's a great foundation for helping change culture, okay, on campus. So this is kind of exciting for us. Some software tools that are it's hard to get new software sometimes, and we've done it. So we're excited about that. This GRITS platform, which is Green Revolving Investment Tracking System. This is pretty cool because it's a great platform for us to track all our sustainability projects. We put them in here, not all of them, I should say, but it has the opportunity to handle all of them if we want. We're just building it out now. We put different projects in there and it tells us tracks all the environmental and financial impacts associated with the project, right? Really cool platform. And also this Events to HVAC, which is really something unusual that helps us to take advantage of the opportunities in buildings to not fully heat and air conditioning spaces when no one's there. It actually links like events management scheduling system from the registrar's office, and it links it to the HVAC controls, takes the schedules and puts them in that system and automatically schedules spaces for heating and cooling temperatures based on the actual needs. So that's pretty cool. So we're proud of the software that we're implementing, and this is part of was part of our efficiency goals, over a year ago of implementing new things into our programs and growing them out. And I'm excited to report back to you next year on this, and I'm sure it'll be expanded quite a bit by then. There's a lot of other things going on, but we won't have time today to get into it. Feel free to reach out to me after this meeting, anyone online here that wants to talk more about any of the programs that we're working on. So from here, I'll turn it over to Nick.
All right. Great. So let's talk alternative transportation. Oh, excuse me. So just first, a little bit about us. We're located on the ground floor of the Perry Street Garage, surrounded by construction at the moment and for the next year or so. But what we do is we help educate students, faculty, and staff on their transportation options and encourage them to get around via modes that are not driving alone. So this includes biking and walking, taking transit, and even carpooling. And so as John mentioned earlier, we're really tied to goal 9 of the climate action commitment, which is to reduce single occupancy vehicle commuting to campus by 20% by 2025 and reduce transportation related greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030. And so we've been hard at work over the past year on a number of things. So I'll kind of touch on those now. The first is an update to the design for bike rack shelters on campus. So we heard from campus cyclists that the design that we had, which was just a roof structure, did not provide enough protection from the elements. And so what we did through this design process was we were able to extend the roof line on either side and then add walls to 3 sides of the bike rack shelter. And so this, of course, has really helped to improve protection from the elements, but also really helps to legitimize bicycling as a form of transportation on campus and in Blacksburg. So this one here is taken at Cochran Hall. This was the first retrofit that we were able to do. We're also going to be installing 2 more of these on down Washington Street near Steger Hall and Life Sciences 1. So back in November, we launched the first publicly available EV charging stations on campus. There's 3 of them here, all in the Squires lot. Each of them has 2 ports. So there's a capacity for charging 6 vehicles at one time. And one of the parking spaces is accessible, which is a really nice feature. So these are available for a small fee to anyone with a valid parking permit. And since they've launched, we've seen utilization really kind of increase and finally kind of tapered off in March with about 40 unique users per month. Moving forward, we'll be installing 2 of these in the Perry Street Garage in the upcoming year. And again, each of those will have 2 ports. In June, we relaunched the bike share system and introduced pedal assist e-bikes for the first time. So what this means is that you, when you hop on the bike and start to pedal, a motor kicks in, helps get you up to 15 miles per hour, really making it easier for you to get up hills and in the summertime, get around without breaking a sweat. So we know that those are 2 big barriers to people bicycling. So what we hoped before we relaunched the system was that we'd see greater utilization, and that has definitely been realized. And then moving forward in the next year, we'll double the size of the fleet, go from 75 bikes to 150, add 4 more hubs across campus, and also some additional hubs in the town of Blacksburg. So again, I think that the additional bikes and additional hub locations will make this system more convenient for users. So I hope we continue to see utilization increase moving forward. So a year ago today, BT introduced 5 electric buses into their fleet. The first electric buses for BT, they have a goal of transitioning their fleet to fully electric buses by 2032. And so this was kind of the first step in that direction. They've been well received, have performed really well, much quieter, of course, in addition to the emissions reduction. And BT has ordered more buses. 5 will be introduced into the system in the fall. And then there's another 12 that they've ordered that should be in the system within 18 months or so. So one final thing we'll be working on this coming year is the introduction of a vehicle total cost of ownership calculator in the vehicle purchasing process. What this will do is anytime someone goes to a department goes to purchase a vehicle, they'll have to fill out this calculator and it will compare total cost of ownership from with an electric vehicle, a hybrid vehicle, and internal combustion engine vehicle. And if the hybrid or electric comes out with less total cost of ownership, they'll be required to purchase those. This will encourage the adoption of electric vehicles on campus and help drastically reduce greenhouse gas emissions. There's, of course, a policy component to this, updating a policy, as well as development of this calculator. But fortunately, the state of Virginia is working on a similar calculator, so we're hoping we can piggyback on that process to make this easier for us. So that's it for alternative transportation. I'll hand it over to Teresa now.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I get the fun one. Virginia Tech and the Zero Waste Campus by 2030, that initiative that we have been given. And first thing, I guess I need to ask Steve if he wants to come over to the waste team, since he has some experience in analyzing waste on campus.
Sure, I'll help you. Happy to help out. Time of time. Let's talk about it.
Well, the first order of business for 2021 for the Office of Waste Management was to look at the comprehensive waste management plan that had not been updated since 2011. And really, this was going to give us a good baseline for where we are as a department, as a team, you know, how we are currently doing things, what's collected on campus, how it's collected, and responsibility for. But the main thing was to give this information to our campus community so everybody had this information. And that was truly important before throwing the climate action commitment their way and having them try to absorb that. At least with the waste portion of that, they already had some idea of how things were done on campus. And then the climate action commitment certainly laid out, you know, what our goal was to be for the next few years. With that, the pathways that were potential pathways that we could take to get us to our goal. The first that I think is very important is the zero waste consultant. We did send out the RFPs and had a number of responses to the RFP. The committee has gone through that. One of the big things, in my opinion, for that position, for that consultant, is to give us a lot of data regarding what our waste composition is on campus. That has changed tremendously with so many people working from home and continue to work from home. Things that we were able to recycle a few years ago, and I'll get into that a little bit more. Those things are not, those programs are no longer available to us. So having that zero waste consultant actually take a look at what our waste is made up of and giving us some ideas on how we could handle that better is certainly going to be something that I am anxious to see and what they think it's going to take to get us to our goal. The second thing is a procedure to measure progress. I think with each of you on this committee or on this panel, we all have different ways that we are trying to measure, benchmark where we are and where we want to go and how we're making progress each year. I would very much like to, after hearing your presentations, use more of your measurements on some of the waste that you are evaluating. Like in Steve's case, look at some of that and how we can zero in on some of those things and be more efficient with the way we're collecting it, how we're measuring it, and getting it processed. But we are looking at more and more ways. There are so many projects on campus that we feel like we are missing some of the things that are being recycled. And so we want to try to find some different ways to measure how the waste is being handled for those projects. And we've found some things that we are able to do, and others we are still working on a procedure to gather that data. The engagement with faculty, students, and staff, we have done some of that with more and more people on campus. In the last year, we've been able to work with professors and students and a lot of the staff with setting up, whether it be a litter cleanup, whether it be going to an office and talking about recycling with those people in the office so that they can do a better job with their green office programs that they're trying to implement. We've been trying to do more and more of that over the last year. And here is a good overview of the recycling rate since 2004. And as you can see, we started out at the 18.3% recycling rate back then. And we've eventually got up to 44.1. And 2012 was a really good year because we had come out of the green sword where China was trying to reject all imports on their end. And we came out of that and markets were very, very strong again. And then some things happened in 2013 and 2014, and recycling changed drastically again. Markets were very depressed. They were unstable. We have done some work to try to clean up some of the recycling that we have been collecting. So contamination was a huge issue at one point, which led to changes in the local programs. And I mentioned that earlier. The makeup of our waste that has changed and the markets that have been available have changed drastically to the point where we no longer have an option to recycle our shredded paper without doing a separate collection of that paper and other items like our books. Those are very heavy items that add to our percentages when we look at them overall. So we've had some challenges, but we are overcoming those. We are finding some ways that we can handle those challenges and be able to reduce the amount of waste and increase the amount of diversion. And that brings us to this slide. If we look at just the last few years, the first column, the burgundy column, shows the recycling rate. The orange column shows the diversion rate. And when you take both of those and add them together, when you look at those and what DEQ considers your total recycling rate, that's what the gray column is. So we were at 27%. We went to 78 as far as the diversion rate, but that brought us up to a 32% recycling rate. So that's where we are now. And that's pretty good considering we've had 2 years of COVID and dealing with a lot of people not on campus, a lot of takeout, things that cannot be recycled, dealing with some of those issues. We're still wanting to get our composting program up and running in the very near future. So that will help a great deal. So the factors to consider with all of the data that we've collected thus far during this year, COVID-19 did continue to impact our recycling and trash collection. We also had the governor's executive order 77 that mandated our discontinuation of single-use plastics on campus. So we have, and Nathan did not mention this, but he and Emily worked very hard on gathering the information along with the procurement office to develop a plan to eliminate those plastics within a certain time period. And so we know we're still going to have some of those single-use plastics on campus because they're going to be brought onto campus. But as far as purchasing those items, we will no longer be purchasing some of those items that were in the mandate. And even though that has been rescinded, it still helped us in this overall goal to eliminate some of those plastics that we have not been able to recycle or that we did not have an outlet for. One of the other things, Montgomery Regional Solid Waste Authority modified their list of acceptable recyclables. They did away with several programs, so we are still dealing with some of the aftermath from that and finding some ways to handle some of those recyclable items that we still would like to be able to include in our percentages. And then again, our contamination continues to challenge us with rejection of loads. We always want to be mindful of what we have in our recycling, and we're working very hard to try to unify the messaging that we have on campus. That's been something that also Emily and Nathan have been looking at, is how can we make sure that we have consistent messaging across campus so that we don't confuse people as to what goes in their recycling bins. And this is the most recent label that we have. And I'm sorry, that's not very, very clear, but we have cans, glass, paper, plastic containers that are number 1 and number 2 plastics. And then at the bottom, we don't want garbage placed in those recycling bins, no plastic bags, no foods or liquids, no clothing or toys, no electronics, no shredded paper, no styrofoam. And that last one is blocked here. Let's see, no tanglers. So that would be things like chains, cords, things that could damage equipment. We work very, very closely with RDS to make sure that we provide a quality collection of materials for them to process and be able to market to those manufacturers that are using this as feedstock to make new products. And we are always striving for solutions. And one of the things that we have really been pushing is to get financing to purchase some additional big bellies. We feel that it is one of the most efficient ways to handle the trash on campus. We do have a number of the tulip cans that you see on the left-hand side there, but you see all the to-go containers that do not fit in the opening at the top. They end up as a sculpture on top, and then when the wind blows, it blows everywhere. So then we've created a litter issue on top of having a lot of trash that is not recyclable. But we are working on eliminating those tulip cans and putting in place some additional big belly containers, which will compact the trash and have a section for the recycling that both we and Meridian Waste that we contract with will take care of servicing those items. And I think that is all that I have. Yes. And
Great.
I turn it over to Todd.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Teresa. I'm going to get my share going here. Where are we? Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm going to focus on the Climate Action Living Laboratory component here, which you've already heard a little bit about as a component or one of the pillars in moving forward on the broader climate action commitment. We talk about the Climate Action Living Laboratory. Really what we're talking about is, of course, the integration and advancement of these various, of these three components, I guess you could say. And hopefully our advancement does not look like this. Hopefully when we talk about training for careers in alternative energy, it doesn't mean what we see in the cartoon here, but rather it means finding ways to effectively integrate the great things you already heard about from the others today. That is those things that fall under point one around climate action on campus and beyond, with our curricula and also with our research. And so how can we bring that together? How can we advance? In particular, I'm going to talk about curricular and research efforts, and of course, our integration with those other things happening. And I would certainly highlight or point out that I don't think in any way we want to suggest or pretend that there's not a lot happening already. There's a great deal happening. I can't see the list of who's here now, but I know Emily Satterwaite's here, and Ralph Hall's here. A few folks are out there, Jennifer Benning, they're doing fantastic work and research and curriculum already. And so I don't mean to, or we don't mean in any way to belittle those efforts. Really, as I'll come back to here in a moment, is what we're trying to do is find ways that we can elevate that work, coordinate that work perhaps, and certainly support that work in greater ways as we move forward. So the vision with the Climate Action Living Laboratory is really that Virginia Tech is a leader in addressing our most pressing climate and sustainability challenges through transdisciplinary approaches and strong partnerships, building on the strong foundations of the holistic way in which this has come about through strong engagement across our whole community, certainly with student advocacy and leadership, broad shared faculty advocacy and leadership, and certainly last but in no way least, the incredibly impressive and strong partnerships with CPIF and facilities and operations in general. So in service of that vision, we have a couple of goals, certainly over the longer term. One is to expand our already noteworthy disciplinary and transdisciplinary research so that we can play an increasing role in tackling the world's major climate sustainability challenges, to coordinate and collaborate across the curriculum, including the variety of different majors, minors, and courses related to climate and sustainability, so that we can continue to educate leaders of tomorrow to advance this important work. And last but not least, as I said already, to use the campus climate and sustainability initiatives, that is all of the great work happening, whether it's in energy, whether it's in transportation, whether it's in waste or in other areas, as test beds for experiential learning through coursework, and also as opportunities for testing cutting edge and advancing cutting edge research through not limited to, but including sponsored projects. And of course, last but not least, using faculty and I'd say student expertise to inform campus climate action as we continue to move forward. So those are our long-term goals. And you will have, this should look familiar. John, earlier on, just trying to move my controls here if I can. Just give me a moment. There we go. It's in my way on my screen here. So John earlier mentioned goal 10, which is really what the climate action, which the call out to the Climate Action Living Laboratory, and pillar 2, which is the pillar under which this work is taking place. And I would say, if we're honest about it, this work has seen a little bit of, I think, positive, I hope positive mission creep as we've been moving along. So really, when we looked at goal 10, it focused much more on the curricular part, and really we're trying to think about this, pay more explicit attention, not just to curriculum, but also to research opportunities, as I already suggested, as we move forward with implementation. So that's kind of how this is housed in terms of what we've been doing to advance this work, to advance goal 10. Well, as I said already, we certainly have a lot that's already underway, and that's already a lot that can be built on in terms of multiple classes, programs, research projects. The Climate Action Living Laboratory that a few of us have been facilitating. We've had great response from across the community, over 100 core faculty that have expressed their desire to be affiliated with this and that have participated in one way or another, including about 50 folks who showed up for a multi-hour retreat back in September. A Miro board, we moved a lot of it online, and we've been using this Miro platform as a way to network and coordinate across that network and advance thinking and strategizing among ourselves, and then various social networking and other events. And so, for example, we had a gathering a couple of weeks ago here at Maroon Door to keep both the network alive and keep the thinking happening, coordinating happening. In terms of, what this looks like, in some ways, as I said already, and maybe a bit of a broken record, but I think this is so important to us, is the way in which this work can and should integrate with all of the other goals we have. And so when we think about a zero waste campus, for example, to the presentation you just gave, Teresa, we think about the ways in which this work can integrate with that. And we think about what are ways in which curriculum and research can integrate with the fantastic efforts in that area. Certainly, though, there are other goals there are certain goals within the commitment that we probably want to pay explicit attention to. And frankly, we could probably do more to advance as we think about curriculum and think about research. And certainly, again, to call out Emily Satterwhite again, who's on, I know who's or at least was on the call here. There's a lot happening around their new climate justice program. And that might be a way that we can think about that certainly crosses that line between advancing that explicit goal of the climate action commitment, but of course has a curricular component. Student engagement obviously will be really important. So far, this has mostly been, with the call, more faculty, and then certainly engagement with key staff partners across CPIF and beyond. But obviously, it'll be important to think about how we can engage students as we move this forward. And as John already mentioned, one way in which we're doing this work of building the network and trying to push forward would be through this important roadshow. So as a means to kind of get feedback on what we're doing, but also to build strong partnerships, and we hope support from key administrators and other folks. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of, I already mentioned the Miro board. This is kind of what it looks like in terms of the broad spectrum of various things that we've been doing. So you can see we've developed areas for tracking research, tracking curricular offerings, tracking our progress. And I'm going to zoom in on a couple of these here. And so a key one is just identifying who's here, who's who around Virginia Tech and who's doing what. So I'm not sure if you can see this on your screens, but each of these little sticky notes is a faculty member. I think they're mostly faculty, there might be some also staff, AP faculty and so on, that is working in a particular area. Some of these folks were identified by us as we started to build this out, and then many, many others have added themselves or moved themselves around, basically just to give a kind of inventory again of who's doing what. So if we look across multiple different areas, whether it's transportation systems or it's climate environmental justice or it's agriculture and food systems, who's doing what. And the color of the tags is typically indicative of what college they're coming from. So it just gives us a sense of who's doing what. And you can imagine how this is useful as we continue to try to solidify the call and as folks that are part of this may look for partners to work with, for example, in research or curricular proposals. So that's one thing we've been doing. And then the other thing I just highlight here we've been using the Miro for is to advance some of our thoughts on how we might structure this, how we might institutionalize this, I guess would be a different way to put it. And more importantly, to get feedback on those. And so the Miro board provides a space for folks. Each of these is a discussion thread. These little comment bubbles is a discussion thread where folks can basically contribute to, okay, that this idea may have certain opportunities. We're evidently short on opportunities there at this point, so hopefully we can find some, identify some barriers, potential partners, and so on and so forth. So it allows for us to have this discussion on each of these things. So I already mentioned this. I'm not going to go through this list, obviously, one by one for sure, but that we have a lot of strong foundations to build on. I think we're starting to get a pretty reasonable inventory across majors, across minors, across specific courses. So we're starting to build get a good sense of what's out there. And it's a pretty impressive portfolio that's out there. Where we're further behind is in doing something similar around research. And there are obvious reasons for this. It's a little bit harder to catalog or inventory the various research initiatives because they obviously there's no single kind of clearinghouse we can find them under. We don't code, for example, in Summit on the basis of sustainability, relation to sustainability or climate change, although we might consider that in the future. But that we know that there is a lot happening out there, certainly in terms of Virginia Tech's research portfolio, a lot of different projects and programs across various institutes, centers, certainly colleges and departments in our outreach and extension and so on and so forth. So last thing I'd say is just, where we are right now, I think, or where we want to give more of our attention is to continue, well, it's two things. One is to continue to build that inventory and grow that network and start to build an umbrella that people want to be a part of and want to feel some affinity to. But the other equally important thing is to push forward in thinking about how we institutionalize this. And so to put it very frankly, I think it's incredibly impressive how the degree to which facilities, CPIF and beyond have advanced action on the kind of operations side of the house. And I think, frankly, we're pretty far behind on the academic side. And so what we need to think about is how do we institutionalize this? What does it look like to build some kind of a home for this that can provide resources, that can provide coordination, that can provide legitimacy? And certainly there are various models we've been thinking about. There are models out there that we can consider, like institutes and centers, destination area structure that's kind of still holding on. And of course, something as ambitious as the college model. But each of those has pros and cons. And so that's where we are right now is thinking about those and certainly welcoming feedback on, or I should say examining those and welcoming feedback on what ideas people have for various approaches for how we might institutionalize. But certainly as we move forward, we want to continue to engage stakeholders. We want to think about that institutionalization. And last but not least, what we need is certainly your support with all of that. We know that, and history on this very issue at Virginia Tech has shown this, that things happen both as a result, of course, of the bottom-up pressure, and also, of course, for this to be institutionalized, the top-down support will also be necessary. But both of those are going to be critically important. So with that, thank you. I will stop my share. And believe I'm passing it over to you, John.
Yes. Okay, is that working? Okay, yes, hello. I'm John Shewchuk with the Virginia Tech Environmental Coalition and Virginia Tech for Climate Justice, presenting on sort of a student perspective on the climate action commitment. So I was on the climate justice subcommittee of the original working group, but I haven't been too involved in the implementation. So this is sort of straddling the perspective of somebody who's in the loop about things, but also somebody sort of looking into it and giving it sort of a critical outsider's perspective, I suppose. So for starters, a reminder that students have always been a part of climate action at Virginia Tech. This picture, and this is my background, is from the 2019 climate strike, which is part of what got the ball rolling on the 2020 revision of the climate action commitment. There were about 1,000 people, students and community members on the drill field. And similar efforts, I think, also inspired previous revisions to the climate action commitment. So students should be well aware that they have a lot of influence on how things go if they mobilize and put in the effort. So to begin with, on the progress of the climate action commitment, it's pretty encouraging. The goals themselves are pretty strong. We have the carbon neutrality for 2030. 2050 is to get rid of carbon credits and such. The 2 megawatts of solar project coming up is pretty exciting. The energy reduction, the efficiency, the LEED buildings that we've heard about are encouraging. There's the new transit infrastructure, the multimodal transit facility by Perry Street, the new buses, the electric chargers, those are all good. And we have the greenhouse gas inventory from Dr. McGinnis and his team, which gives us a good view of the challenges ahead, minus the ones for dining, but I think those are coming soon. So that's good to know that we have all of this happening already. There are some shortfalls, I think, both obvious and less obvious. I know there's a lot of cynicism around at least the perceived shortfalls in dining hall waste and other waste on campus, where there's reports from employees that a lot of the recyclables and compost just get thrown out at the end of the day. People aren't sure about options on other parts of campus. And I think this causes a lot of disillusionment among students who want to be conscious of their own footprints and aren't sure if they're getting support. I think also we've heard a great deal about efficiency improvements, but it's worth questioning how actually getting rid of fossil fuels altogether where that's going to come from. And that's partly a question for the 2025 revision, I know, but it seems like it's important to start thinking about as soon as we can, since the steam plant is, per the actual climate action commitment, supposed to go towards renewables starting after 2025. And it seems like underlying problems in these and some other areas are that staffing has lagged behind a little bit. I know we heard that it took a while to get a waste consultant and things like that. So with this in mind, it's worth being a little bit concerned that we have a lot of work to do still to hit the 2030 goals. Also, to bring up climate justice. So goal 11 in the climate action commitment is that climate justice is a core value of the entire document. But it's somewhat unclear how closely that's been integrated into the efforts so far. So for example, we have that 2 megawatts of solar. Do we know what the production of those panels was like? Were they produced fairly? Was the metal extracted in a place where it's done ethically? Were the production conditions good? And then what's the end of life plan? Will the panels be recycled properly and not dumped in a third world country that doesn't have the infrastructure to handle them? Basically, all of these things that are about Virginia Tech has to make sure that as it minimizes its own burdens, it doesn't just shift them onto other people, both in terms of environmental and social impacts. And so our purchases and decisions are going to be reviewed by a climate justice consultant or advisor for these dimensions. This is maybe another area in which, again, staffing is worth thinking about. As far as transparency goes, I think things are actually not too bad. There's a lot of information online. Some of it can be pretty scattered, I know, from even me trying to get up to date for this presentation. There's the VT sustainability site and the VT Office of Sustainability and different pages. Some of it's hard to tell if it's up to date. Not all of the web pages have all of the details, but you can find those reports like we've seen some of earlier. So you can get some good details there. And then we heard about that Climate Action Movement Roadshow, which has been talking about a lot of details. There's the Student Sustainability Forum. So a lot of effort has been put into getting the information out there. It still takes some effort to find it, but you can get to it. So that's good. And then as far as involvement goes for students, there's a lot of good opportunities to get involved in this on campus. We heard about some of the academic options. I think there's a lot. I'm excited for further progress in that area. I'd love to see like a one-stop shop for all of the classes, a list, even a pathways category would be really cool, but it's already a great spot, I think. There's a ton of student organizations. I'm in the Environmental Coalition. I know there's the Environmental Student Organization, Students for Sustainable Practice, any number of them. You can look them up on Gobbler Connect. There's so many. There's the green RFP process that we heard about earlier, which can feel a little bit impenetrable if you want to go for something really ambitious, but you can get through it. It has a lot of potential to deliver some interesting projects that move things forward. There's the Office of Sustainability internships we heard about. There's those call incentives we just heard about from Todd. I think those are a good way for the university to boost engagement and also support its own efforts, have the sort of staffing power, not staffing exactly, but the effort put into these things where it can be from in-house even already. And then also, I'm told that the energy and sustainability subcommittees, which exist now, are looking for student members for a couple of different things that you can get in touch with Jack Leff, whose email is there, and he's also one of the participants here, I think. About that, there's the climate justice subcommittee is an important one for students to be on, and just all of these. So that's something I would recommend reaching out about if you're interested. So that's everything I had prepared. I think on balance, everything looks good. There's a long way to go, like we've heard, but my outlook as a student is pretty positive.
All right, thank you all so much. We did have on our agenda a section for some kind of reflection, conclusions, next steps, kind of thoughts from John Randolph. If you're interested in speaking for a moment on that. Oh, you're muted.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll just say a couple of things, kind of reflections on what has been said already, and kind of look to the future a little bit. One thing, since I've been at this a while, I chaired the original committee that did the 2009 climate action commitment and kind of have a little history here. But I've never seen the university, especially in facilities, so dedicated to climate action. You know, in 2009, it was like, you know, kicking and screaming, you know, like, why are we doing this? And now it's like, it seems like everyone in CPF is coming up with great ideas. Everyone is engaged, and that's probably the most encouraging sign compared to the last. You know, it's really, you know, in terms of what John had to say, you know, this started with the students. Students have always been involved in kind of pushing the envelope on this. And that is one area that we really have to expand. I should say, though, I think it's a two-way street. We got to get the students stepping forward too. They've done a great job in the past, but you know, it's somehow not just all our fault of not meeting the engagement goals that we want. So I really think that we got to work on this on kind of both sides. In terms of our big goals, John, you're absolutely right. We just don't quite know yet how we're going to move beyond this. And I think 2025 revision is going to be interesting, but a lot is necessary in terms of technology development to get rid of natural gas. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. We've got a lot of infrastructure and steam pipes around campus that it's difficult to undo. So this is a real challenge. We're not alone in this. Everyone who's trying to go net zero or carbon neutral is faced with the same situation. So we're not the only ones thinking about this, and hopefully technology development will really help us move toward those latter goals. But anyway, it's pretty exciting time, and I'm really happy to see the reaction on campus to this. We just have to keep it going.
All right, thank you all so much. At this time, we are going to move into our Q&A portion of the event. We have about 10 minutes left for that. Feel free to submit any questions that you all have in the audience through the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. While you guys are typing those out, we did have one come in during the presentations. This is available to anyone to answer, but what are some ways that alumni can support these efforts?
Do you happen to have like $50 million? No, I'm kidding. I'm joking partly because at some point, wouldn't it be nice if we had a donor, you know, a donor initiative around, you know, advancing some of this stuff, especially, I think at some point, if we want to have, to John's point, the kind of one-stop shop, whether that's for curriculum and or research, you can think about how that happens often because there's initiative. And I'm joking about the $50 million, but I'm not really joking about the money part. I know that's maybe not what you want to hear. I mean, it's not what I would want to hear. But the truth is that, you know, we already this year had, I forget what it was called. The John, I'm sure, can say what it was called. But the Hokie Giving Day, there was a way to give for these projects. And hopefully that will grow over time. I know this was I think this was the first year. It's one of the first years. So I'll let you take over because I'm bumbling.
But I think alumni can, you know, just indicate they care. We've got this Green Grads program. We're trying to get students out there who are kind of initiating, but it's not just money, it's their support and that they want this to happen at Virginia Tech.
And I think a really good way to support some of these efforts is when the alumni are coming to the sporting events or any other activities on campus, using those recycling bins and putting their waste in the correct place. That is a wonderful way for us to see their support, is by using those resources that are available while they're here on campus.
Yeah, I'd say just let the university know that these things are important to you as an alumni. When you come to campus for reunion weekends and things like that, talk about it all day. Talk about it to everyone you know. Get everybody excited about the initiatives that we're, you know, get them doing the same thing. And, you know, write the president. I don't know. Write letters. Say this is important. And say you're glad that we're doing things. You know, show support for it like that.
All right, we've got another question in the queue here from Jack. Also open to everybody, but he's curious to see what people think the campus is going to look like in the next 3 years, maybe 5 years, because of climate action commitment work, both physically, culturally, anything is fair game.
Dream a little, right? But short-term dream. I wish we could put more solar on campus before 2027. We've got a constraint on that. We're going to be talking to APCO to see if we can modify that, but we'll see that. And I would like to see a more of a showcase solar project on campus to really demonstrate what we're doing, rather than to have to, all of the buildings that we're putting solar on have to go through the architectural review board to make sure these panels cannot be seen. That's not my idea of showing off, but anyway.
Wait, where is that restriction? Why is that restriction in place? What?
It's the architect Nazis that are, they don't want HVAC systems or fume hood vents coming out, up making these beautiful buildings ugly. So anyway, we've got to have a little chat with them.
Is that at a campus level, or is it like what level of authority do they have?
Well, it is sort of campus level, but there's some state architect Nazis too, who are also kind of in on the game. More later on that.
Gotta learn whose offices we have to go protest outside.
What I'd like to see in 3 years is that our graphs on energy usage and greenhouse gas emissions taking a substantial drop. And I think we really have an opportunity with that, with the team we're developing on that efficiency side, Steve. But I think that there are real opportunities there as we look at the big energy hogs, the lab fume hoods and everything. There's some real opportunities, and I think we can show something, and I think it'll make a splash.
If I don't want to dominate, but I'll say very quickly. Culturally, I think is a really interesting question, Jack, and you and I have talked about these kinds of things before. I'm the bit of the bomb thrower here again, but I actually think we have to be a little bit honest about that. Not everyone is into this, right? I mean, there's a few of us here. There are, I used to teach anymore, the environmental policy and planning course, and I always loved teasing some of you. I don't know if you're still here, but a couple were here before that took the class with me, so you'll know that I do this. I always ask about what do they think about driving to campus, because it's a class of people who are supposed to be environmental, and I drive to campus too, so I'm just as guilty. But I admit that. But it's one thing to kind of, even if we are into this, to think about what does it look like to change our behavior. In some ways, that's the really hard part, right? The easier stuff, in some ways, and I'm going to get stuff thrown at me by CPIF folks because I know it's not easy, but is the institutional choices, right? The harder is when we start to affect individual change. And so I think we have to figure, that's the much harder part. I think is going to be figuring out how we actually promote a widespread cultural change among all stakeholders. Faculty, students, staff, everyone. I'm not sure
the link to that I think is a broader support, and this is the idea, is linking this to what other buzzwords, livability and wellness on campus, that they're so closely connected. And there are other advocates for those issues that we can bring into our group.
Yeah, definitely. All right. We have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. I'm trying to see if anything has come in through the Q&A. So Emily Satterwhite, she says, thank you to everybody. She's interested in having consistent public access to data on scope 3 GHG emissions specifically. Will we be able to see data over time for commuting versus air transportation versus methane versus investments? All of that, is data going to be available publicly?
Sure, yeah, I mean, we're getting better at that. Nick's getting better. Steve's getting better. We've got Simona doing energy analyst data. I think we'll have the data. It's all kind of hidden away now, but it's making it more transparent. That is part of our goal.
All right. So as we're coming up on the end of our time, I just wanted to say thank you to all of our panel members for the great presentations and for answering so many questions today. I'd also like to thank our audience for attending and being an engaged audience and member in all of this. I'm going to share my screen really quickly just to get some contact information up for everybody. So people feel free to take a picture of this slide if you would like to reach out to anybody after this presentation to ask further questions or just to communicate a little bit more about some ideas. And then while I have this up and you're taking pictures of that, I would like to encourage everybody to check out the calendar of events for Earth Week. This event is part of our Earth Week celebration. And we still have a bunch of events planned all the way through this Saturday. If you just Google Virginia Tech Earth Week, it'll be the first link that comes up. It'll show you our full calendar there. And with all of that said, thank you all for attending, and I hope to see you at some events later this week.
Thanks, Emily. Good job.
Yep, good job, Emily.
Yeah,
Good job,
thanks.
everyone. Thank you.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.